I don't know if you know this, but Dan Bongino had Trump on his show, Unfiltered, and apparently they edited it to, I guess, filter it.
Welcome back to Unfiltered. Joining me
Hi.
now is the 45th President of the United States, Donald Trump. President Trump, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much, Dan. Good to be with you.
Sir, so when you were in office, you declared an emergency at the border in April of 2020 when you realized the problems you were going to have with the coronavirus.
So not before that, when the numbers were the same they were this year.
Apprehensions at the border dropped to 16,000. 16,000.
Yeah, because of COVID.
After you made that decision. President Biden's done the exact opposite. And
Well, they did stack at the border, for one. They started accumulating on the other side of the border. They didn't just vanish. They didn't not come. They just all parked. Right? We do know this. We're still operating in reality, right, Dan? Bongino, who's looking for TP for his bunghole.
apprehensions at the border are upwards of 200,000. This is a total failure, isn't it?
There's never been anything like it. We had the safest border, the most secure border in the history of our country, and now we have,
Well, clearly, that's not true, but...
by far the worst. Hundreds of thousands.
Maybe, well, okay, it's the worst ever. So after we built the wall, the border is worse than it's ever been. After you spent 4 years convincing us that Mexico was going to pay for it and 2 years building the goddamn thing. After the wall is constructed, worst border ever. Just clarifying, just so we're all on the same page. Before wall built, fine. During COVID, very low, no one moving, everyone staying home and being afraid to die. And then wall built, and after wall built, it sucks. Seems weird. So, yeah. Worst ever happened after wall. Gotcha.
Of people are pouring into our country on a monthly basis.
Yeah, millions every month. I mean, do you really need people? I mean, this is great video. This is from last year, but it's okay.
We're talking about millions of people, millions and millions. And the worst of all is other countries are emptying out their jails and prisoners are coming in.
Yeah, you know, I have a great relationship with the president of Mexico, but he's dumping all of his rapists out and sending them straight to America like sexual assaulting cruise missiles. But I love the guy, and we get along, and we're very different, but I still call him.
And these are rough prisoners. These are the toughest prisoners you'll find anywhere. And they're coming into our country totally unchecked.
Well, I mean, excuse me, sir, you're not being a very good white supremacist right now, because in American jails, the Aryan nation makes up 1% of the prison population and is 20% of the murders. So I'm just saying, if you really want some good, you know, bought and paid for murders happening, some real tough hombres, as it were. I don't know that they'd like you to say hombre. They probably get mad about that. Anyways, I'm not really. I don't want to mis-transracial them. But, yeah.
And it's a disgrace. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country.
Mr. President, you had a big win, an endorsement of Mike Carey for Congress. Big win.
And a big loss before that. That's weird.
And for you and your endorsement.
So you're a coin flip.
Over there. What are your feelings about 2022 and 2024, if you wouldn't mind, given the Democrats' obvious overreach, defunding the police?
Not the only people who signed on to the defunding the police stuff literally in a bill was the Republicans.
Inflation out of control.
That'll be dead by December, probably.
We don't even have a southern border anymore.
Well, it's the wall. I blame the wall, don't you?
Feelings on 2022 and where the Democrats' luck may be.
Well, I feel very good about it. We also had a big win in Texas. So we had 2 Republicans running. We won 3 months ago, a big one, and we got 2 Republicans running, no Democrat. And
yeah, and the person you, in a dual fight between Republicans, the one you supported lost. Okay.
The Democrats that voted, of course, voted against me. But that was a tremendous win. And then we had the big win in Ohio. That was more of a normal election, and Mike won by really a lot. I mean, what he did was fantastic. And
Yeah, nobody turns red districts redder.
he trounced the opposition. And
Yeah, I'm sorry about the echo. It's I don't quite know what the cause of it is right now. It's very strange.
Very good people in that opposition, by the way. But Mike Kerry's going to do a fantastic job. He's got an election coming. But I think he's going to do very well in it.
Mr. President, where do you stand on this explosion and reemergence of mandates? You know, we get it. We've heard the science on the vaccine. We get it. It's a serious threat, the virus, to at-risk groups. Everybody understands that.
Oh, sorry. To at-risk groups. That's adorable.
You didn't have as much information when you got off. It was a new virus, obviously. Where do you stand on these mandates?
Well, first of all, could you imagine if I were president right now and we had this massive attack from the coronavirus? You know, now they like to call it they have new names and they'll have other new names, but it's exactly what we had. We had the same thing. If that
I don't know what the whole. There's lots of names for it. I don't know what that proves. He seems to think that's a winner. It seems to be something that he clings to.
If that were me, they'd be saying, "What a horrible thing! What a horrible job."
Well, if it were you, there wouldn't be the strategic rollout. Like all the people, let's say in the red states who are getting vaccinated right now, wouldn't have access to those vaccines if you were actually running things. That would be the thing.
I don't ever hear that, you know, and these are numbers in some cases that are equivalent to what it was, but we don't hear that. I think I have to be a big vaccine fan because I'm the one that got it done so quickly. We got it done in less than 9 months. It was supposed to take 5 years. They would have never even gotten it done. So I'm a big fan. At the same time, I'm a big fan of our freedoms, and people have to make that choice for themselves. And
yes, freedom to die. It's very important that you have that freedom and you show your freedom and show Trump how free you are.
I would recommend that they get it and they get it done, and they're being protected, and the vaccines turn out to be a tremendous thing. And I also, though, feel strongly there are some people that do not want to do it, and I really believe in somebody's choice, somebody's freedom, and that's the way it is. The mandates are crazy, and
yeah, that no one is mandating the vaccine on a government level. Companies are doing it. You know, the kind of stuff that Rand Paul and you always push for.
What they're doing.
You know, of course, Rand Paul doesn't do it about vaccines. He does it about, like, black people being allowed to eat in restaurants or Jews being able to go to country clubs.
With schools now they don't know. Are they going to keep them closed, or what are they doing?
They're opening. They're just debating about masks. Most are wearing masks. No one thinks they're not open.
The teachers' union now is in flux.
No, they're not.
All of the things that are happening, people have to get back. The kids have to get back to school. They do very well against the coronavirus. They do unbelievable, or as I call it, the China virus, because that's what it is. It's the China virus. That's where it came from. Came from the lab. I said it came from the lab. Now they're all saying, well, I guess he was right about that. But they used to take people off. They probably still do. They take them off Twitter.
No, they don't. No, they didn't.
They take them, they deplatform people when you said it came from the lab. But it came from the Wuhan lab, and to just...
No, it didn't. We don't know that for a fact. They're still looking into it. And as a matter of fact, it's weird because, let's see. I'll have to find this one, and this is kind of important. Let's see. Origins of COVID funding. Something like that. Like, you mean like this kind of stuff? That kind of... How about, let's see, hold on. Let me jump back over here to, oops, clicked on the same thing. This is a, I mean, clearly a left-leaning paper. That's why it's yellow. U.S. President asks agencies to redouble efforts amid questions over the role of Chinese lab. U.S. President said Wednesday that he had asked his officials to deliver within 90 days their conclusions on how the SARS-CoV-2 virus first spread to humans. Biden said in a statement, as of today, the U.S. intelligence community has coalesced around 2 likely scenarios, but has not reached a definitive conclusion on this question. I have now asked the intelligence community to redouble their efforts to collect and analyze information that could bring us closer to a definitive conclusion and to report back to me in 90 days. Biden did. Trump, no. That's weird. Weren't you president all during this whole thing?
Disgrace what happened, frankly, a real disgrace.
Say disgrace more. That I think it's got the oof you're looking for.
Mr. President, that segues into my next question. I was going to ask. The media coverage during your administration was an abomination, and that may be selling it short. I mean, it was really atrocious. Whether it was the Wuhan.
Well, you were on, obviously.
Lab leak, which looks likely at this point, and accurately, you said that in the beginning and pointed that could be a likely scenario. But one of the other things I find odd is, you were very gracious to Democrat governors during the crisis, whether...
What? Very gracious to Democrat governors. That's Dan Bongino. I'm sorry, he was what? In an interview with Fox News host Sean Hannity Thursday night, you can't expect Dan Bongino to know that. Trump complained about 2 Democratic governors, Jay Inslee of Washington and Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan, whom he fumbled to identify, instead calling her a woman governor, saying they complain too much and that we'll have to make a decision regarding Michigan's emergency declaration. Without identifying by name, Trump also criticized New York Governor Andrew Cuomo's request for 30,000 ventilators, saying, incredibly, I don't believe you need 40,000 or 30,000 ventilators. That's what he wants from governors during Friday's briefing. He said, I want them to be appreciative. We've done a great job. When they're not appreciative to me, they're not appreciative to the Army Corps, they're not appreciative to FEMA. I say, Mike, don't call the governor of Washington. You're wasting your time with him. Don't call the woman in Michigan. It doesn't make any difference what happens. It doesn't. 40,000 dead now? It doesn't make any difference what happens. Trump said during the briefing, before mentioning that Pence is a different kind of person, he'll call quietly anyways. Bipartisan group of congressional representatives from Michigan wrote a letter Thursday to Pence urging the federal government to approve pending shipments of additional personal protective equipment, like a request for 200,000 swabs that has gone unfulfilled. This is, when was this? What was the date on this? March 27th, 2020. Abomination, you were saying.
There was Governor Murphy you had at the White House, or Governor Cuomo, even though you have obvious political differences. You sent the comfort up there. And these Democrat governors had a really terrible record. Their deaths per 100,000 people are the worst in the country.
Well, they might have been until Florida and Texas said, hold my meth.
In New York and New Jersey. And yet now it's the opposite approach by the media, sir.
And now it's the opposite states that are the problem.
Now Joe Biden's in the White House, has his own crisis to deal with, and Republican governors, Abbott and DeSantis, all of a sudden are the enemies. Odd, no?
Yeah.
Well, they're the ones with the highest death rates. And it was preventable. Like, if you had them early on in this, you could argue that was just the nature of, confronting this as it unfolded. But they have the death rates when we already have a vaccine. That'd be the difference. You know what I mean? It's like the difference between being sucker punched and losing a fight you picked yourself.
Well, it's a great way of phrasing it. It's very interesting. I used to do a weekly call. We would have a weekly call with governors, and all governors, Republicans, Democrats, would have 50 governors on plus, because we'd have people from the islands, we'd have others, but we had 50 governors, and they were very gracious, and they would say what a great job we did, unbelievable job, and then some of them would go out and do a press conference and say exactly the opposite. It was disgraceful. But
well, maybe they weren't talking to you. Maybe they were talking to the FEMA people that they were actually having cooperation with, but then when you were on the phone, they were like, he's an asshole.
I could, and by the way, we could write a book on governors.
Do it. Write a book on governors. 50 chapters starting now. Dictate the whole thing.
I am the king of governors because
The king of governors.
I can tell you the good ones and the bad ones. And you have some very good ones and you have some really, really bad ones, both parties. But you have some good ones and some really bad ones. But I noticed the way they're going after DeSantis. I noticed the way they're going after our great governor from Texas. And he's done, Greg Abbott, he's done a really good job. Ron's done a really good job.
No, he has not.
But they're going after Republican governors.
No, they're not going after anyone. Those are the states with the highest deaths and case counts. And they are the same states that are attacking mask mandates in schools and every protective measure.
To a much lesser extent did that, unless I thought they were doing a bad job. Some obviously did a horrible job. I mean, they've destroyed their states. It's going to be years before they can really come back.
Which states are those?
But no, it's a...
which states are those? Seriously, which states? There's like zero lag for New York and California, that's for sure. What was he talking about? Ohio?
It's a total double standard, and the press understands that, but the press has been unbelievably dishonest and corrupt.
Yes, it's not believable that they've been corrupt in any major way or dishonest with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible how the governors, again, were heroes in your administration despite being goats, and now the opposite story because you're out of office. Let me move on.
Well, again, people who had a high death rate when there was no vaccine versus people who have a high death rate now when there is a vaccine.
On to a different topic, if I may.
Yeah, don't drill too deep.
Cori Bush, member of the Squad, she's a congresswoman.
Is Cori Bush in the Squad? Okay.
She came out this week and reignited calls to defund the police. This has been an absolute apocalypse for the Democrats, even though Joe Biden, during the campaign against you, was on the record saying, yeah, he'd be for reallocating some money away from police.
Yeah. Reallocating some money away from police according to cities for mental health stuff so that cops don't have to go on those calls is not defunding the police.
This is going to be a disaster for them in 2022.
It's not actually going to be a disaster. It's not going to have any legs
Isn't
at all.
it?
I mean, keep bringing it up, though. It's really, you're doing a great job.
Well, I think it's going to be. I think we're going to do very well. We've done a great job. Look, we had the strongest border in the history of our country. Another 2 months, we would have had the wall complete.
That's what it was. It's just that they're going through that 2-month gap.
Now they're paying billions and billions of dollars not to build the wall, not to complete it. We would have had it done in 2 months, maybe even less.
It's like a Marx Brothers routine. How much to build the wall? $4 billion. How much to design the wall with building it? $6 million. Okay. How much to not build the wall? You can't afford it.
Less than that. Got to be painted or it's going to rust. They know that, but they don't want to do that either.
Yeah, there's just... I see the Trump wall and they have to paint it black.
They are just... Who knows where they're coming from? Look what's coming into our country. Who knows what they're doing? But I will tell you...
well, you were just the president. You could have access to a lot of information that most people don't. Maybe, is it a comprehension problem? I think so.
I watched her the other day. I watched the hatred. I watched the statements that she was making. And no, she wants to defund, and they want to defund. You know, it's not a popular issue. So they're trying. Some of them are trying to back off it, but they want to defund the police. They want like the vote.
Yeah, literally, what, 3 people? It's the same. There's the same number of people in the Republican Party that want to legalize all drugs. Not decriminalize, legalize all drugs. Just for the record. Everything. Heroin, like fentanyl, just buy it over the counter. Anything. You'll figure it out.
Voter ID. They don't want it. They don't want voter ID. Now, every once in a while, you'll see them come out, oh, absolutely, we love voter ID, because they're seeing poll numbers. It's 88% positive. So some of them are now saying, look, we can't ruin our political career over it. So all of a sudden they're saying...
Oh, you mean they're representing what the people want? So they're shifting their position based on new information from the voter, right? That's what's happening. So Where else could that apply?
Will accept the voter ID. It's disgraceful. But they want to defund the police.
No, they don't. But keep saying it.
And tell me that makes sense. Look at what
It doesn't. It doesn't make sense when you say it. It doesn't make sense about the few people that you have found say it.
is going on in New York. Look at the crime in New York. Look at this. The incidents that happened where they're beating up elderly people on the streets, beating them up.
Yeah, it's almost like it's New York.
And the cops aren't doing anything. And our prosecutors, they're just after Republicans, guys like me.
Yeah, they would have that old person got beat up in the street because the cops that were on that beat were taken off to go after Donald Trump.
The prosecutors, they should be. I think the biggest problem is our prosecutors in New York and other places. They go after Republicans, but if you kill somebody, you're okay. It's a disgrace.
Yeah. For the record, anybody who's watching the show anywhere, if you kill someone, it is not okay. I would like to say that as a liberal and a Democrat, it's not okay. It's just not. It isn't okay. Even doing it in self-defense, even if it's justified, it's not okay. It's something terrible you have to live with your whole life. It's awful.
What's happening, and I don't think the country's going to stand for it much longer. They're disgusted. They're destroying our country. Whether it's at the
that was an edit. Oh, is that where they took it out?
To stand for it much longer. They're disgusted. They're destroying our country.
Did you see that? That was a cut. Dan Bongino.
Whether it's at the border, whether it's on crime, I could say in plenty of instances, including military. You look at the leaders of military, the woke leaders of military. We have to focus on our great military for what it's supposed to be, to protect us against very powerful countries like Russia and China and others who don't exactly love us.
Well, yeah, they do. That's what they do.
Mr. President, can you stay with us through this brief break?
Well, yeah, I mean, you can cut some of that time out.
Yes, go ahead, Dan. Sure.
Thank you. We'll be right back with former President Donald Trump. Stay tuned.
I'm just saying, when he was on Fox and Friends, they didn't go to break, Dan. They just wrote it out.
Welcome back to Unfiltered.
But that, in all fairness, he's no longer president, completely irrelevant, and not really worth losing advertising.
Filtered, and we're back with former President Donald Trump. Mr. President, you've always, when you give speeches and you see an American flag, you made a point
of humping it.
To grab the flag,
rub it,
hug the flag, embrace.
Wait, did he say hump?
You see an American flag, you made a point to grab the flag, hug the flag.
Ah, he almost got himself. Did you see that? Hump the flag is what he did.
And you see an American flag, you made a point to grab the flag, hug the flag, embrace it.
That's what he's doing. He's hugging it. He's not humping it. He's humping the flag. Dan, you of all people, clearly when you see Donald Trump rubbing his groin on an American flag, hump is the word that comes through. Or death. Hump or death.
We're very proud of our country. Yeah, we have athletes in the Olympics supposedly representing our country, deciding it's a good idea in front of an international audience to embarrass the country.
Well, no, it's not embarrassing to the country, Dan, and I'll explain it to you. Why is that if in our country you have a right to have a grievance with the government, for example, and you can show that grievance in any way that you choose. You have the right to free speech, and because of that right, which is sacrosanct and is one of the most important aspects of our country and in many ways the essence of our existence, that means that even in those circumstances, you can turn your back on the flag if you want. Other countries that Trump likes very much, you can't do that or you'll die. So every time one of them does it, even if it's negative, it's still a positive for the flag because it is emblematic of the very thing that they are doing, which is the right to protest, the right to, to have free speech. So, however, if you rub your dick on a flag, I think it has to be burned. I think that's Marine rules.
And take a knee, and you see ratings plummet.
Yes, in Russia, you don't hump flag. Flag humps you.
As a result, your thoughts on that?
Well, the ratings do. It plummeted for the NFL. It plummeted for baseball. You see what's going on?
yeah, they weren't able to have games, and then games were slapdash and starting again. But then now they're through the roof. They're selling out games. It's ridiculous. They're packed.
But look at the soccer team, the women's soccer team. All of a sudden, they're not like they were. They were supposed to win the gold medal. But you know, the word woke means loser.
The word woke means loser. Thanks. Do they give you blocks in the room they keep you in?
If you're woke, you're going to lose. And ultimately, we're not going to let woke make this country into a loser. But you watch that, and I watched some of the people, and I was very proud that some of the young women on the soccer team stood up proudly, and they stood up proudly against all odds.
Yeah, and the nice thing, though, is that that didn't stop you from rooting against the team. So, 3 members or 4 members turned their back on the thing, and the other members didn't, and yet that was enough for Dan and this guy, his name escapes me, both of them to basically pray for a loss.
With what they have to put up with on that team.
Yes, it's true. Trump apparently is admitting that he is woke now since he is a loser.
But the word woke is loser, and our soccer team did not get the gold medal, and they frankly didn't even come close to it. And we are, look, the country doesn't like it. I don't like it, and a lot of people have turned off.
Did you just try to find the most orange picture of him, Dan? Holy hell. Look at that. Do you know how many pictures there are of this guy that they could just rotate through when he's on the phone? They always use the same, scowl photo for the close-up. Look at that. That is amazing. What color is that? What? Look at that. What the hell? That is amazing.
To sports, LeBron James, they don't like him. The NBA didn't do great, but they did better after he was out. They don't want this. There's enough of it. They want to watch sports. They want to watch great athletes. They don't want politics in the middle of their sports games, and that includes the announcers too. I hear some of these announcers, they're not big shots, that I can tell you, but I listen to what they say.
Yeah, you never listen to a big shot.
And you just want to turn off the game, and many people do. You see the
Why? What are you talking about? Why is that the athlete's fault?
ratings, how bad they are.
Yeah. Mr. President, I appreciate your time. Been very generous.
That's not even the team's responsibility.
With it. One question for you about school closures. This is a hot issue right now. The teachers' unions, remarkably, we saw a story out at Fox News about
You saw it at Fox News? When were you there?
the Chicago's teachers' unions, which is implying they could shut down the schools again now. Parents understandably are...
they're implying it. I see. Sorry, one second. Let's see. Chicago's teachers' union shut down... something like that. Let's see. April 12th. This is okay. Chicago Teachers Union threatens to go back to teaching remotely Wednesday if no high school deal is reached. That's if no high school deal is reached. So the other schools, the elementary schools, those will all be okay. Amid a stalemate and reopening negotiations, Chicago Teachers Union is threatening Wednesday labor action in which the high school educators will refuse to work from school buildings unless an agreement is reached with the district before then. That means high school educators will walk into buildings Monday on their planned return date, but would revert to teaching remotely Wednesday if a reopening agreement remains out of reach. High school students have the option to return to the building. Had the option April 19th, but some students are supposed to return to the classroom Tuesday to take the SAT. Oh, wait a minute. When is this? Yeah, that's right. All right, this is April. Go back here. What do you got? Where's this? Maybe it's Fox's doing. Let's see. Fox News. There you go. 4 days ago. This will be it. Chicago Teachers Union says coronavirus Delta variant opens door to potentially pause in-person instruction. No, be quiet. Chicago public school students are scheduled to return to classes August 31st. is calling for a tougher approach to combating Delta variant ahead of the new school year, suggesting that in-person instruction could be once again paused if cases continue to climb. Wednesday, letter addressed to Mayor Lori Lightfoot, Chicago public school officials, members of the school board. New pandemic variants pose immediate threats to the health of all Chicagoans, but especially our unvaccinated student population. Just horrible, Dan. Just horrible. And by the way, if you're wondering, this is what the Delta variant looks like.
Really fired up. This could be up to 3 years of their children's lives taken away from them. No social
3 years?
interaction, no school. It's just not the same on Zoom. It's just not the same thing.
Yeah, tell them. Go off on homeschooling. Tell everybody what idiots homeschoolers are. Do that part.
Your thoughts on that as a father yourself?
Citation needed.
Well, first of all, you mentioned Chicago. Let's talk about crime before we talk about that. But they're both just horrible. But where 70 people get shot over a weekend, 70 people, and many of those people die. In Afghanistan, we haven't lost a soldier in a year and a half because
Well, we haven't, but there's ongoing fighting there all the time. He loves to make this comparison.
of what I did.
Yeah, and P.S. China has no new cases.
In a year and a half. And yet in Chicago, you have 70, 80 people being shot some weekends. It's a disgrace. As far as the schools have to open. These young people are losing a big part of their life, and they're not going to recover from it. The schools.
Why? Seriously, why? How weak are these children? Does he realize what adults went through during World War II? Does he realize what children in England went through in World War II or in France? Never recover? The fuck are you talking about? What are we just gonna? This is just Trump saying, look, last year, well, we basically had to write off any kid that was in school. I have never understood this bullshit.
Have to open what they're going through socially. I mean, they're not dealing with people. I don't think they ever. It's going to leave a scar on their lives. It's going to leave a psychological scar. We have to open our schools.
How much of a psychological scar do you think it would leave watching their classmates die?
I say let the teachers get the vaccine. They should get the vaccine. I hope they do. Again, it's something I'm very proud of. I think if we didn't come up during the Trump administration with a vaccine, you could have 100 million people dead, just like you had in 1917.
Fucking hell. 18.
You take the Spanish
And no. And that was closer to 50 million.
flu, 100 million people, up to 100 million
Up
people
to.
died. I think we'd be in that territory. This has been great for the world. But the teachers, let them go, get the vaccine. I don't know how they're being dealt with.
Sorry, the audio's choppy. It's aggravating.
They have different unions, but they have one in particular. They don't want to ever go back to work. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Our children need to be they need to be educated. You know, it's turned out
By the way, he said home for a second and then backed up.
computers are wonderful and all of that. But one thing we've learned through college and school, the undergraduate everything, is that being in the school is much better than looking at a computer screen.
Okay. So being, let's see. Let's see. So, just to let you know where we all stand on every time he brings this shit up. And this is just about a year, remember. He's saying this about people all the time. So, like, this is, during this year, it's going to leave such a scar on these kids. because they didn't go to school during a pandemic and watch everybody die and participate in spreading it to their grandparents, which was, and their parents or their relatives or whoever might have had a pre-existing condition or comorbidity. But meanwhile, teaching your kids from home is a recipe for disaster. According to Donald Trump, your kids are always going to be scarred. They're going to be second-class citizens. They're not going to have the social skills. They're a mess. And he looks, again, what is this confused picture here?
That's one thing almost everybody universally agrees to.
You know who doesn't agree with it? The homeschoolers that have emerged as Republican foot soldiers. First come morning prayers, then breakfast, then Bible stories. After that, Andrea Ferrier's daughters take out their textbooks. Another school day has begun. As the girls dig into their math problems, Ferrier contemplates the Republican presidential candidates who are vying for the support of homeschoolers like her. They're wooing us. It feels really good, she says.
And the children have to go back to school.
Mr. President, last question, and we'll let you go again. Thanks for your time. The Biden administration's taken a shot at your economic record, which is kind of hilarious given how awful of a job they've done.
Well, except that whole better than expected growth thing.
They're claiming, they're comparing the rebound from the coronavirus, the lows, to your record. Now, when you got into office, GDP grew well over the average of the 8 Obama years. That's got to upset you, given everything you did.
Well, yeah, but notice how you said average there. Because that means you have to include specifically the 3 years during and after the crash. And yet still, and I know you're not going to bring up, Dan Bongino, the fact that Jimmy Carter trounced Trump and Reagan.
Did to juice the economy at the time, tax cuts and everything else.
So the reason that our economy is doing well right now, relatively well, is because of the foundations that we built. What they're doing and the numbers that you're seeing are because of us, not because of them. Plus, what they're doing is a lot of artificial stimulus is being added in, which makes them look a little bit better. But the reason we're doing well is because of what we did. If you look...
Sorry, the audio, it'll level out in just a second. Hold on. I'm not quite sure why that...
Just prior to the virus coming in from China, we had the greatest employment numbers we've ever had. We had 160 million people working. African American, Asian American.
Yeah, we've done all this shit before.
Hispanic American.
The distance between black unemployment and white unemployment and Asian unemployment never narrowed. They all went down together, which meant it was bigger economic factors.
Women, people with diplomas, without diplomas, high schools without and with...
Really? You're going to show the baseball pictures?
Diplomas.
You're not going to... This is... You've just decided to do this? Hold on. Trump, baseball, catch. You couldn't find... like this one isn't better? Wouldn't, but oh boy, this one works too. All right, that's a better picture. You were smart to pick that one.
Everybody at the top of the line in the history of our country, it was the strongest. And again, we've never had 100.
And by the way, not even close. And by the way, he's going to go. We had 160 million people working or whatever. Yeah, the population grows. We know this.
160 million people working, not even close right now. So we had the best numbers we've ever had. Then we had the virus come in, and then I rebuilt the economy a second time. And they're just going off what I rebuilt. That's
what you rebuilt was essentially the entire Build Back Better plan and the influx of money from the biggest rescue package in American history, and then of course the push for this infrastructure bill, which will sustain it. And then of course, but please tell me about lumber prices.
All they're doing, because they're killing the economy. You're going to have inflation is going to eat us alive. We were energy independent. We're no longer energy independent. I don't know if you saw, Dan, but they went to sea and they had meetings with Russia and OPEC to see if they would get us more energy. We had so much energy we didn't know what to do with it. We were $1.87 a gallon for gasoline, and now we're up to $4.50, and it's going much higher. So what they're doing is going to destroy the economics of our country, and maybe more importantly,
Let's see. The American Independence Index is comprised of U.S. Canadian energy infrastructure companies, master limited partnerships, and general partners of MLPs. Growing production of crude oil, natural gas, and natural gas, increasing the need for new infrastructure to move, process, and store this output. This turn reduces the need for U.S. to rely on imports to meet its energy needs. Is therefore anticipated as the U.S. becomes ever more energy independent. North American infrastructure businesses, MLPs, GPs stand to profit. Well, golly, that's this would seem like as it's continuing. Is it? Is it continuing? That's strange. Let's see. Let's see. United States. Let's see. Oh no, that's Wikipedia. We're not going on that. There's the American Energy Independence Index Tracker. That's kind of what we were looking at before. Let's see. 10 to 21 in the 1950s. U.S. total and primary industry. 2016, edging out or whatever. Basically, consumption. There we go. Of consumption, production, imports, and exports. There's exports. Here's imports. Wait a minute. If the green is the wait a minute. No. That's going down. Still going down. Why is that? Consumption's going down a little bit too. Production's down a little as 2020. Imports and exports. That's weird. It's leveling off. It's still going up slightly. It's not going down. Drove change in U.S. trade. That's 2020. Let's see. How can U.S. Here you go. U.S. oil imports 2021. Net imports of crude oil will increase from its 2020 average of 2.7 million barrels a day to 3.7 and 4.4 in 2022. Expected more petroleum. Let's see. Expected more petroleum than it imported in 2020, according to EIA. 2020, the United States exported more petroleum than it imported, making the first time this happened, according to U.S. Energy. That's what he's clamoring about. Across energy independence, that's why he plays with the numbers. However, EIA expects the U.S. to return to being a net petroleum importer on 2021-2022 due to declines in domestic crude oil production and corresponding increases in crude oil imports. The increase in crude oil imports will drive the growth in net petroleum imports in 2021 and 2022, offsetting changes in refined production net trade. Net imports of crude, 3.7 million, 4.4. U.S. net petroleum product exports, distilled fuel oil, hydrocarbon gas, liquids, and motor gasoline, among others, averaged 3.2 in 2019, 3.4 in 2020. Net petroleum products exports will average 3.5 in 2021 and 3.9 by 2022. So that's where all these other things, we have a lot of this, and we bring in petroleum, but we export the other stuff, and that's where we end up energy independent. The EIA also said the United States will import more crude oil to fill the widened gap between refinery inputs of crude oil and domestic crude oil production in 2021-2022. U.S. crude oil production declined by about 0.9 million, or 8%, in 2020 because of well curtailment and decline in drilling activity. In 2020. Because of. All right. Further, EIA expects the rising price of crude oil will contribute to more U.S. crude oil production later this year. Domestic crude oil production will reach 11.3 million barrels per day by the end of 2021 and 11.9 by end of 2022. These values are up from the most recent monthly average of 11.1 in November 2020, but still lower than the previous peak of 12.9 in November of 2019. This is all this is the stacking people at the Mexican border and then pretending that all the people who are coming across have just come up with the idea.
What they're doing at the border and other places, with a lack of respect that other countries have for us, our country is being destroyed.
Mr. President, thanks for your time. It's an honor to speak to you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Dan.
Yeah, Dan, it was an honor to watch you edit a lot of what he said. It really did.